So this is Brent, Brent Hamilton from Tabor. Tabor, he's been invited to participate today as he's been in Southern Alberta his whole life. He is currently employed with the town of Tabor as the lead hand for distribution and collection. He has a level 2 certification in water and wastewater distribution and treatment and collection. So he's been working on his level 3 now for a while, and we'll be getting that soon. And he's been in the industry since 2007, all of which actually has been in the town of Tabor. And so he's got some great stories and problems that he encountered, where he's going to go through the projects, what happened, and kind of how they were able to solve those problems. So take it away, Brent.
All right, we'll start with a little bit of background. Population of Tabor, 8,400 people. We have an older collection system, majority, which is a VCT, vertified clay tile pipe. So problems with that, calcium buildup, little C factor a little higher, problem with infill and exfiltration as well. We have 3 sanitary lift stations in the town. So go to the next slide, please. So grease removal, well, we started this about 12 years ago with working with ACTZyme with an enzyme. Our first enzymes we had were a powder that we needed to activate with warm water. So what we do is load up a couple pails of warm water, put this enzyme in there, get it activated, and then you could see us driving around with splashing this water around the truck and going to manholes, the upstream manholes, and putting it into the trough of the manhole. We noticed right away within a couple months that this grease was starting to soften up. This enzyme was starting to soften up the grease. And we went from backups downtown from a few times a month to just only a few times a year. So it really helped our problem areas. You can go to the next. So now, a few years later, we've introduced into the bagged enzymes. It's a 2-pound bag, dissolvable plastic, so which works a lot easier. We're able just to put the bucket in the back of the truck, go to our problem areas, which is usually our downtown core, where there's a lot of restaurants, things like that, that cause the fats and oils in the line. Again, the application, upstream manhole from the restaurant. And yeah, usually 1 bag, 2-pound bag every, we do it every Friday. It seems to be the day that works the best for us. And we check manholes all throughout the downtown core. So yeah, again, the grease is starting to not harden in the pipes anymore. It's staying softer and almost a soluble state. We are dosing now the LS7, which has improved our lines even better, but now it's moving the grease. So where is the grease going, you say? Some of it we're vacuuming it up, but the majority is moving down the line. So next slide, please. So yeah, you can see here, it's moving the problem to our wastewater treatment plant. Right here, that picture to the right there, the lighting makes it look really green. It's not actually that green. Is our primary clarifier. So how that works, most of you know, the flight goes across the top, skims the grease to our back grease separator, goes down the back wall and brings the sludge that has settled out to our primary sludge pump. And yeah, you can go to that next slide. That's good. So this is some of the grease now that we've encountered. So it solidified in the back, and that size is about to be about the size of a small car. So you can see as that settled to the bottom, it just destroyed our flights and our cross collector, chains broke, and we were fixing the primary clarifier probably a couple times a year from broken chains or worn out sprockets, things like that. So you can go to the next slide. You can see us here trying to spray it down. It was not really a hope in that one. We actually had to go in, which we had to go in anyways, but we're trying to get some of the sludge towards our pump at the other end. You could see how much work that would have been to break that all up and get that out of there with vac trucks and stuff. So we started to think, okay, what can we do to solve this? I mean, we moved the grease to another area town. So we contacted Bob from Ectozyme, and he said, why don't you guys dose the LS7 bags into your clarifier? So go to the next slide. So this is where we put our enzymes. It's our fine screen. It's just before our primary clarifier, and that's where we dose the enzymes into that trough there. Since we've done this, we've really haven't had to do much maintenance on this clarifier. The chains have been good. We purchased all brand new to retrofit this clarifier with new chains and flights and all that, but we haven't really needed that yet with this enzyme. So that's a big cost savings for us and time of the operators not having to go in there and get extra help, because of course it's confined space and high H2S. So yeah, go to the next. So those are the two areas we kind of day-to-day maintenance. And then this is the big one we had about, over 2 years ago now. So we have an industrial collection system as well. And this right now we're showing you to the right there, that's pictures our screw pump. So whenever we have to bypass our wastewater treatment plant, anytime we're doing maintenance or there's a big rainstorm, we bypass our plant to help out our headwork so we're not flooding it out. And that will go into our industrial line. So where our industrial line goes, it is a siphon line that goes underneath the river. And at that time, so we were doing some maintenance on our secondary clarifiers, and we started to bypass, and that line would not take what we were bypassing and caused a big issue in our treatment plant with the flooding into our headworks and all through the plant, and those contractors pretty much having to run out of there and take cover because it was starting to seep through the walls and coming back through. You can go to the next slide. So this is our siphon. So it's our industrial line that goes, it stretches over 1 kilometer. So you can see the right-hand side of the diagram, that's the south side of the river, where our screen is, where the wastewater starts, and it goes through 3 different pipes. It depends on the flow underneath the river. And then to the left, you can see in the diagram here, schematic A, I'm not sure if you can see that, there is a valve structure, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. And so it comes out the other side through another opening, and that's where it goes. The 200 line, the 300 line, and the 450 meet and go back into one pipe. You can go to the next screen. So yeah, we had a plug in that line. So this screen at that time was, you could only see maybe the top couple inches of the screen. So I'll tell you exactly, the middle line, you can kind of see the trough right in the middle. That would be our 200 mil pipe. And it takes the flows when the flows are pretty low. Once it starts getting a little higher, to the left is your 300. And then to your right is the 450 line. So that line normally just gets used when we're bypassing the plant, like a big rain event. The types of effluent we deal with in the industrial line is we have 2 factories mainly, is the Lay's potato factory. So we get a lot of oils from them, potato waste, actually potatoes washed down, the screen catches a few of those, so we pull that out. And then we also have a turkey plant. So you can imagine the stuff that comes out of that, a lot of grease from the meat of the turkeys, blood, feather, turkey parts. So we use a little rake and we clean the screen usually a couple times a week. All right, you can go to the next slide. This is a picture looking south to the north. North, you can't really see the lagoons. They're out in the background there. but this is kind of the lay of the land from the top where the screen is. You can go to the next slide. And this is down in the river bottom where our valve structure, which I'll explain shortly. You can also see to the left, just behind the truck, there is a air release. That's kind of a high point there, and then at the top of the coulee on the north side is another air release to let air of the line as the siphon works across. You can go to the next slide. So that was May 17th. Now we're on to it backed up. We didn't know what to do. We started flushing from that the screen. Nothing was really working, so we stopped bypassing. The line slowly drained a little bit because they were still working, but they were very badly backed up. So May 25th, time to investigate. Why was it plugged? What was causing the backup? The siphon line. There's a diversion blowout system. So we started investigating. There was nothing ever done with this line because it will always just float. And so there were diversion lines. So we looked into that. Where does the diversions line go to? And how does the siphon blowout system work? Go to the next slide. So to the left is the diagram of our schematic of the valves. And to the right is the picture of the valves. So what it is, you can see now, we did notice this when we started looking into it, the 300 and the 200 have switched spots. So somewhere underneath the river, they must have, for some reason, switched it or something happened. But yeah, this is what we got. So you have a valve that you can shut off from the south side or the north side. And then they share, the 200 and the 300 share their own diversion line. And they have diversion valves, so you can isolate which line you want to flush out. And then the 450 has its own. You can see I scratched out the valve locations there. They were actually incorrect, which caused some issues later on when we tried to clean these lines out. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So what we had to do was find these diversion lines. They were just cut off in the ground, and we didn't know what the plan was when they installed it. This was back in the 1986. I'm not sure where it was supposed to go, but there was no maintenance ever done. So we called in locates, we dug down, and we found the end of this diversion line. So like I said previously, that valve, we thought one valve was closed because of the diagram. So what we had to do was put this valve, restrain it, and open up the other diversion valve, which we thought wasn't the diversion valve. So that was confusing. So we had to put this valve in. And then got a Hymex coupling, and we made up a cam lock system, put some grater blades down just to hold, because you can imagine that head pressure coming down that side of that coulee there of how much we had. And then we hooked up our hose, and you can go to the next picture. And there's our vac truck. So our vac truck, what we did was we opened those up. So what we wanted to do was get some flow velocity through those areas to try to move some of that grease and fats that were in that line. So over the next couple weeks, we went on the 200 isolated valves, tried to get flow going through them to see if we could increase the flow to the other side of the river. So the one we're on right now is the 450 line, and that line was completely plugged. We were not able to get flow. So over the next couple weeks, we flushed through that line into the vac truck, which we thought was working fairly well. You can go to the next picture. Here's one of our operators. He thought it was pretty smelly, so he used his earplugs for nose plugs. You can imagine the smells of grease that's been in the pipe for over 30 years. So the smells were not nice, that's for sure. You can go to the next picture, next slide. So we're into June now, and again, still a lot of vac work. The line is still running through the 200. We finally get some effluent going through the 300. But the issue is we don't really have a big issue until we have to bypass and run the 450, which we found out that line wasn't really working that well. You can go to the next slide. So we worked and worked and worked, and then we thought, okay, the 200 and 300 are going, and then we had a rain event. We had to bypass the wastewater treatment plant. We had partial flow, the 200, 300, but the 450 was not running. So we decided we needed to do something with this 450 line, why we can't get it. Again, it's over 1 kilometer long between access points. So again, there's not a flusher out there that has it. We have 650 feet of reel. That's pretty much all we could reach. So it really did not much when we tried to flush it out with our flusher truck. You can go to the next one. So what we did was we called our app design rep, Bob, and yeah, he told us to start using the LS7, which is the fog management. And what to do was just put it into that screen that I showed earlier, and we just dosed a couple bags every day, hoping to try to get some flow through that 450 to see if we could move that grease plug. So yeah, we started at July 25th-ish, around that time, and we just kept hammering in that enzyme, hoping it would soften it up and eventually move it along the way. Next slide, please. So now it's been 2 weeks approximately, and we begin to see a trickle of effluent coming through the 450. So we're pretty excited here. We grab our flusher truck, water truck, because there was no water source up top because it's in the middle of a coulee, or at the top of the coulee, sorry, and we have no infrastructure out there. So we started running our flusher down the 450 line, and what we did was I thought, okay, we have 650 feet of reel. Let's buy another 650, see if we can add that to it. So we were running about 550. The plan was to run that in, put the new one on the reel, and then run it some more. But at 550, we hit a blockage, and it was hard. Like, it was a solid. So we start hammering it into it like you normally would, trying to break through a blockage. And we started getting big chunks of grease coming through the line. And we're like, okay, this is exciting. And they were huge. They were the size of, started with a flutter board up to the size of a long skateboard or even a surfboard size. So as they're coming, we're breaking them up so they don't cause issues down the line. And then all of a sudden, the next slide. And here we go. What it is, it's a video, it's not loading the best, but for about 15 to 20 minutes, we had just this thick kind of milkshake, greasy goo coming through our pipe. And then we knew we finally broke through. So what happened was that LS7 enzyme slowly started breaking down the grease behind the plug and started moving it up the other side of the coulee. And eventually we were able to reach it and get through, and this is what we ended up. So you could imagine the mess we had in our lagoon system, but we're able to manage that as well with a little more enzymes. Next slide, please. So the costs. We saved thousands and thousands of dollars. If you can just imagine that if we had to dig and replace these siphon lines or try to dig onto the coulee side to try to figure out where this blockage was and to be able to try to vac out those lines, even replace them, somehow try to auger out with a different contractor, anything like that. We didn't know. We were grasping at straws, and we thought, hey, app design, pretty easy solution, just throwing some enzymes in there. So it saved us a ton of money for sure. Next slide. So preventative maintenance. So a few ways is with our collection system, we just now weekly, or bi-monthly, sorry, we put in our enzymes into our manhole problem areas, into our primary clarifier. We're using them, And now for these diversion lines, what to do with them now? We can't just put that back truck because we need to get some velocity flow through those lines. So you can go to the next slide, please. We worked with our local engineering firm, and we came up with a flushing vault. So what we have is our 2 diversion valve or lines. We put in 2 200 mil plug valves. So we are able to open up our diversion valves and then isolate with our plug valve and be able to get good flow. So this flushing vault made of precast concrete, it holds approximately 86 cubes, so 86,000 liters of effluent. So we can really open up these lines and get the sediment out of those low spots, get the big chunks of grease out of the line, so we're not forcing them up the hill. So we just got this installed at the end of last year, and over the summer months, or over the winter here, when the ground was frozen, we were able to flush all 3 lines from both sides, isolate them both, and get them right emptied out, and yeah, vac it out and send it out to our lagoons. Next slide. So this is what it looks like now down at the river bottom. There is yeah, you can, pretty simple setup, nothing too crazy there. So yeah, that's my presentation.
Hey, that was awesome, Brent. Thanks so much. What a thing to have to do when your pipe is clogged and you have a 1 kilometer, you can't get to it. Like,
Yes.
how do you, like, can't get anything down there deep enough or long enough to reach at it? So it was a pretty intense situation. And so it's good to see that you guys are actually able to find something to work that out. So just one quick comment I thought was quite funny. And I don't know if your operators felt the same way, but Chris Houston said, "I will never be able to drink a milkshake again."
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't use that reference.
Yeah.
It was something. I've never seen something like that in my life, so that was pretty wild to see.
Right. Yeah, it was intense. So I have a few questions here for you, but if there's anybody else that wants to pitch in with some questions for Brent, one here is, with all the challenges with grease and whatnot in the city, does the city of Tabor have a grease trap inspection program?
That's actually something we're looking into, and we're working on the bylaws as we speak to try to get that, because we need to have some enforcement to start with, right? So we're working on the bylaws first, and then been looking at different options of how we're going to enforce it, and yeah, start looking into getting it right at the source, right? So we can prevent it from even getting into our lines. So yeah, that's actually what we're working on as we speak.
Great. Oh, and that goes on to the next question. Yeah, it's just providing education and whatnot. So what about the cost of initial versus maintenance? Do you feel like the costs warrant the use of biological products like this?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the cost of insurance claims, of backups, where, yeah, our main backs up. Sometimes we don't catch it every Friday. Maybe it just starts to come later that weekend, and it can start backing up into people's buildings. So, I mean, just the insurance costs of that, or sending out our vac trucks, emergent work, right? That can cost money. And yeah, maintenance on that siphon line was huge, right? Because if we were on it, we would have never had those issues. And luckily the LS7 worked for us, so.
No, that's great. Okay, well, again, Brent, thanks so much for your time. A lot of expertise here in understanding situations, especially about how to do your investigation. I thought what you explained there was really great to help all of us get a better idea of all the processes and thoughts and checks and balances that you have to go through to really find out what is going on. So that was a really great example. So thank you so much for presenting today.